Jesus came to give us life and life abundantly, and he calls us to fight injustice a lot, all throughout the Bible. It's in almost every book of the Bible. There's like 2,100 verses that talk about God's heart for the poor and just him calling us to rescue and defend and protect orphans and widows and marginalized people all over the world. And that is not at all meant to be a burden. Like, we have to do these things in order to be good enough to get into heaven, in order to be good enough for him, or else he's not satisfied with us. He just loves us so much that he calls us to do those things because he knows that they'll be the best possible way of life that we could ever live. When we are living self-sacrificially, and we are living with a purpose outside of just ourselves, it's best for us. And so he would be unsatisfied with us if we were just like allowing ourselves to continually suffer as we just lived for ourselves and didn't rise to his challenge to fight for justice. So that's what I want. That's what I meant to say before. I just wanted to clarify that. I have one more thing I want to say too, just before I get into the talk. It's a little bit of a confession, just from my heart. About a week ago, and leading up to about a week ago, I started getting kind of nearsighted, just in thinking that this is actually about rescuing prostitutes from the streets, and it's actually about us fighting injustice. And I just started to. I just saw it as a very dangerous thing. I was humbled very much about a week ago, and I realized that that does kind of sound confusing, I bet. But just in thinking that way, like, man, we have to go do this. Like, this is something that we can just check off our checkbook or whatever, or our checklist, and then it becomes about us doing something, and it becomes about like numbers for us, like, oh, we rescued this many girls, or I gave this much money, and all of a sudden we lose like the proper perspective, that it's really just about glorifying God through the whole thing. And I was a little more interested in glorifying myself. And I'll continually struggle with that, I'm sure, but I'm just glad that God got a hold of my attention at the time that he did. And so I just want to strive to make this all about him, make this all about his view of justice, and all about me living to glorify him and being able to live the best possible way of life, just in being inspired by Jesus' life as he sacrificed everything that he was and everything that he had for our benefit. All right. I guess I'll hold on to this. It's definitely about balance. It was interesting. I went to this thing called the Lucerne Conversation, and in like the 70s, Billy Graham and John Stott both got together and had a long conversation that lasted all night. They locked themselves in a hotel room, and they tried to figure out what's more important, the demonstration of the gospel or the proclamation of the gospel. And John Stott was more, we need to demonstrate the gospel. And Billy Graham was saying, no, we need to evangelize. And so they were just trying to figure out, like, what's more important? And I think for me, like, when it becomes about actually doing justice and trying to get people to, we have to go do this, then it becomes more just unbalanced. It becomes more of the demonstration of the gospel rather than the proclamation. But it's just a two-handed approach. There's no way that you can separate the two. They have to be combined. Or else you'll be telling someone about the gospel, but your life will be living and showing them a different message, and they'll be confused. Or you'll be, just like serving them, but they won't understand why you're doing it, and they won't know that you're doing it because Jesus did the same thing for you. And so it has to be combined. It has to be a balanced approach. Anyway, I told you I was going to tell you about Win the Saints, but this is just a little of my heart. I want to explain just quickly kind of a summary of my life and how I got here. I grew up in the church my whole life, and my senior year, I watched a documentary called Invisible Children, and it was pretty influential for me, just in seeing a major injustice in the world, child soldiers in northern Uganda, that I had no idea was existing, and I was just kind of blown away. My freshman year in college, I decided to read through the whole Bible, just to know, like, okay, I say that I'm a Christian, I say that I believe in this book, but how could I really say that if I don't know everything that's in it? And I haven't read it at least once. So I went through even Leviticus, all the sores and stuff. And just to say, like with authority, I believe in this book and everything that's in it. And but then I started to get confused because I began to see some of the 2,100 verses about justice. And I was like, wow, God is actually calling us to fight for the rights and speak up for those children who are being trafficked, or those children who are involved in being child soldiers. And I was just like, wait a minute, I grew up in the church. I went to like 4 church youth groups, like in middle school and high school. And I was just like, I've never heard about very often like major injustice in the world. Like if God's heart is so much for it and he's calling us to do it, then why haven't I been educated about these things? Like why, like how can I live out this mandate that he's calling us to do and this best possible way of life if the church isn't empowering me to know what I can do? And so I was just kind of like, where's the disconnect here? So that's kind of the foundation of like Win the Saints, and what I want it to be is just challenging the church to rise to their potential in the fight against global injustice. And it also involves almost 2 years ago, a year and a half, our church did a church-wide fast. We do it every January, and it's 21 days. I decided to fast just full on, like everything, food, not water, not juice, but it was interesting. I'll again try to summarize. Throughout the whole 21 days, I actually heard less from God than before. I would hear every now and then and just but as I was fasting, I heard nothing. He was totally silent. And we were doing like way more prayer. Me and Ben and Ryan, we were in his apartment just on the floor, just praying and going at it for hours. And but I was just so confused. One thing that helped me a lot, I met with Pastor Shane. And I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do. But he told me that like in the book of Song of Solomon, he just said sometimes one of the lovers like hid behind a tree just to see how much the other one loved them and see if he would seek them out in the woods. And so he's like, maybe God is just hiding from you to see how diligently you'll seek him out. So I was like, all right, so it's not like that I'm doing something bad or wrong, but maybe just, well, that's cool. I like challenge. So I'm going to seek him out. And then another part of it was like the last day, I was like, man, I'm going to go to bed at like 9 o'clock and get up at like 4 in the morning just so that I can say like I made it through like 21 days to eat like everything that I can. But on like the 18th day, I was reading through Luke, and in chapter 5, it talks about how Jesus would often go to lonely places and pray. I was just like, And then I got to chapter 6, and verse 12, it says that Jesus stayed up all night and prayed the day before he chose his disciples. And I was just like, all night? Are you kidding me? And I was like, that's nuts. I love it. And I really felt challenged. I just felt like God was like, are you really going to do the easiest possible thing after this huge amount of time and like suffering that you've committed to me? Are you just going to, like, really? Is that how you want to end it? And he was just like, what if you stayed up all night and just spent it with me? And I was like, So I decided to, and I was reading through Romans like 12, 13, 14, 15, and I just started praying for like an hour straight, and I was just like, telling him all the things that I wanted, all the things that I would want for him to do for me. And it just kind of hit me. I was like, man, if God was sitting right here next to me and we were having a conversation, like he would sit there and just lovingly just say, like, tell me everything. Like, I will sit here until you die and just listen to you because I love you so much. But then it just kind of hit me. I was like, what if I gave him an opportunity to speak? Like, at any moment, he could say something that would radically change the rest of my life. And he would just like have just like a sentence of wisdom that would just like, boom, like exactly what I needed at that moment, at any time, any day, whatever, any second. So I was just like, huh. And so I just sat down and tried like not to ask him for something that I wanted, which is hard. And it's elaborate, but I just believe that he showed me faces. It started off with 3 girls. One girl I just prayed for like 15 minutes. I was like, all right. Another one, I just saw their faces in my head. And after 3, I was just like, all right, God, what's this about? Why are you just showing me girls' faces? And they were girls that I knew, some that I grew up with. And I just felt him say, like, these girls have been abused, whether it's like physically through rape or emotionally, and it's just affecting them in a deep way. And I want them to be free from that.